guys, it's Megan. So in my last things to do on your board video, I asked you guys to give me suggestions of things that you like to do on your board. A huge thank you to everyone who sent in an idea. I narrowed it down to 8 different ideas to show in this video, and I tried to put my own spin on each one. And I wanted to pop up in this video to show you guys some of my new merch. This design's pretty basic. It just has the little floral butterfly on it. It comes in sweatshirts, tank tops, t-shirts, stickers, all that fun stuff. So yeah, as always, that's linked in the description, and without further ado, let's just get into the video. The first suggestion that I chose to try was to make salt dough. This is one of those things that I've always heard of, but I've never had a chance to make it. For this, all you need is 1 cup of all-purpose flour, half a cup of salt, and half a cup of warm water. Make sure that you use all-purpose flour and not self-rising flour because obviously you don't want these to rise, mix everything together in a bowl. My mixture ended up being a little dry, so I added another tablespoon or 2 of water. The consistency that you want is almost like Play-Doh. I tried to make mine scented with some fragrance oil, but you couldn't really smell it after I dried them, so I'd probably just leave that out. You can use this dough to make basically anything you can make with clay. I experimented with mixing some paint in to color the dough, and it worked surprisingly well. I only mixed the paint in about halfway to give it sort of a marble effect. I wanted to make ornaments from my salt dough, so I rolled it out to about 1/4 inch thick and cut out hearts with a cookie cutter. If you're making ornaments, make sure to poke a hole to hang them from. I used a straw to do that. There are so many other things you can make with this besides ornaments. I saw these little turtles from Red Ted Art that were really cute, and this jewelry dish would be nice to keep on your desk or vanity. So naturally, the week that I decided to do this, my oven broke, so that was great, and I ended up drying my ornaments in the microwave. I put them on a piece of parchment paper and microwaved them 20 seconds at a time, flipping them over each time I checked them. Mine needed about 4 minutes, but all microwaves are different, so just keep an eye on them. If you're making anything that isn't flat, it'd probably be better to dry them out in the oven at 200 degrees for an hour or 2 instead. Again, this is one of those projects that you have to check on to make sure that you don't burn it. Although if you're painting it afterwards, it won't be such a big deal. After my hearts were dry and cooled off, I used some yarn in a wooden dowel that I had left over from another project to make this garland for my room. The next idea was to make your own trading cards. This is actually something that I experimented with before, and it was one of those things that I started but never finished. I used some playing cards from the Dollar Tree for the base of my trading cards, but if you don't have cards, just cut pieces of paper down to 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. I covered each card with gesso on both sides, then added a few coats of acrylic paint to each side to give me a solid base. If you're going to use playing cards, I definitely recommend preparing a bunch of them with gesso and paint at once, so you can focus on the details later. I decided I wanted to make these into little recipe cards, but instead of putting recipes for food, I put recipes for craft supplies. Since we just made salt dough, that was the first card I made. I cut out and colored shapes on a separate sheet of paper and glued those on. Then I wrote salt dough down the side with a gold Posca pen. I cut another piece of paper down to write the recipe on. I wrote it in purple pen so that it would match the paint on the card. I glued that on and my first trading card was done. I also made one for cinnamon ornaments since I make those almost every year and I always end up having to look up the recipe. And the third one that I made was for my homemade gesso recipe. I actually have so many ideas for these, and I feel like it would be fun to just make a whole video of me making them, but I feel like nobody would watch it, so if you would watch that, definitely let me know. And here are some of these that I made a few years ago. I made these ones with origami. On the front's the actual origami piece, and on the back I put instructions that I printed out. I also made some random ones with stickers and stuff. This one's fun. I glued some flippy sequins on the back. So let me know what you would put on one of these cards. This next person gave me a bunch of different ideas, and the one that I chose to do was to get the Sketch-A-Day app. I like showing apps and websites in these videos because if you're watching this, there's a pretty good chance that you'll have access to it. This app is actually kind of cool. They have a new prompt to follow every day. The day that I did this, the prompt was together, except I filmed the screen recording a little bit too late, so it says that it's yesterday, but I promise it was that day. You can make an account and post your drawings if you want to. I didn't because I know that I wouldn't really use it, but it's kind of cool to see how other people interpret the prompt. I tried a new style for this drawing. It's a little more cartoony than usual, and it's nice because I only had to use marker for the skin. I didn't have to mess around with putting colored pencils over it. Clearly, this was inspired by the current situation, although honestly, I have not used FaceTime in a hot minute, and I'm kind of mad because now that I think about it, the hand should be the skin tone of the girl in the box, not the bigger one, because I'm pretty sure on FaceTime, like, the other person's face is bigger, so that's embarrassing, but other than that, I think it turned out pretty good. This person suggested that I try painting with plastic wrap. It sounded easy enough. All you need is some paint, plastic wrap, and something to paint on. I generally try to use marker on one side of a page and paint or collage on the back so I can fit more into my sketchbook. This idea was actually really self-explanatory. I just put some paint on the page, covered it with plastic wrap, and started moving the paint around. This was almost like finger painting, except it was way less messy. I didn't add enough paint the first time, so I took the plastic wrap off, put on some more paint, and started the process over. When I was done, I had this almost galaxy cloud-like effect. I think this would look really cool if you cut something out of like vinyl or contact paper, stuck that on a canvas and did this on top, and then when you peeled it off, you would have like a design with this around it. But yeah, this was fun. 10 out of 10, definitely recommend it. The next idea was to make a word search. I thought this sounded like fun, but I definitely don't have the patience to make one from scratch. So I went to puzzlemaker.discoverygo.com, where you can make your own word search for free. I made my word search art supply themed. You can choose how many letters you want to cross and down, how hard you want to make it, and what words you want to use. If you want to make it look nicer and get rid of the logo at the bottom, make sure to choose text in step 4. Then you can just copy and paste the puzzle into a Word document and print it out. Obviously, if you don't care about the logo, you don't have to put it in Word. I just wanted it to look all, pretty and everything. So here's my word search, and if you want to print out the one that I made, I'll make sure to link it in the description. This next person suggested that I make some bead animals. I used to make these all the time when I was like 7 or 8, and I always made the ones like this, which are definitely a lot easier, but they're kind of, floppy, and they don't really hold their shape very well. You can find tons of patterns for them on Pinterest. You just search up pony bead patterns, and a bunch should come up. I was looking for a technique that might make these a little more solid, and I came across this website called candypatterns.com. They have tons of tutorials on their site, which is good because it would take me way too long to explain how to do this, but it's fairly easy once you get the hang of it. They have so many different things that you can make with pony beads. I was very impressed with some of these things. I would never have the time or the patience for half of the stuff on here, but if you're bored, I made this lucky Care Bear out of mini pony beads. And I definitely recommend these if you want to make more intricate designs and don't want them to be huge. And I made him into a keychain by looping a chain through 2 of the beads on his ear. I definitely need more practice making these. I kind of messed it up in a few spots, but the fact that it's anything remotely recognizable is good enough for me. Idea number 7 is to try finger knitting. This is another project that I've never tried before, but finger knitting was actually really easy. All you need is some yarn and your hands. Wrap the yarn behind your ring finger and in front of your pinky, holding the loose end with your thumb. Bring the yarn back behind your pinky and in front of your ring finger. To make the first stitch, bring your yarn back over both fingers this time. Pull the 2 loops up over this piece of yarn and slip them off your fingers. And now you'll have 2 new loops. So again, we bring the working yarn over and around both fingers, slip the 2 loops over this piece, and off of your finger. And that's all there is to it. Repeat this until your chain is as long as you want it. When you get to the end, slip the 2 loops off of your fingers, cut the end of the yarn, and bring it up through both loops, making sure to tie it a few times. Just like with the bead animals, you can find tons of inspiration for finger knitting online. I made mine into a coaster by swirling the yarn in a circle and hot gluing it to a piece of felt. Which, side note, it's probably easier just to glue the yarn to the felt before you cut out the circle, but it's still kind of cute. Alright, so this last idea, I feel like it needs a little bit of an explanation because I did not do what this comment said at all, but I felt like this was a good way to kind of illustrate how I come up with my ideas usually. So I saw this comment and I was like, nah, I don't really need another sign. But then I was like, oh, that would actually be a good idea to make popsicles or something when you're bored. But then I remembered this idea that was super popular a long time ago, where you take a soda and you put it in the freezer and you turn it into a slushie. So that's how that happened. What you do is you take a bottle of soda, shake it up, and put it in the freezer for 3 hours and 15 minutes. When the 3 hours is up, Take the soda out of the freezer and open it and close it back up real quick just to let a tiny bit of the air out. Then flip the soda upside down and it should turn most of it into a slushie. I poured mine into a separate cup, and it probably would have been smart to do this over the sink, but the reason that I think mine was in the freezer for a little bit too long was because the slushy part didn't really want to come out. I ended up just cutting the soda bottle, but if you're bored and you have time, you can definitely get a few different sodas and experiment with how long to freeze them. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos just like this one. My merch, my website, and all of my social media will be linked down below. I love you guys so much. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!